Hello there, my name's Adrian and welcome to the first in what I hope is going to become a series of lessons looking at blues rhythm guitar. And today we're going to be looking at the pattern that I just played for you, which is possibly the foundation of this particular style of playing. It's a very common pattern, one that every guitar player should know, and something you'll hear almost every blues player do at one time or another. Everyone from Robert Johnson through to the Rolling Stones through to more modern blues guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan use this type of rhythm pattern. Now I want to begin today by just doing a quick review of some blues basics in case you don't already know this stuff, then we'll move on and look at this particular pattern. So at its most simple, we're looking at a 12 bar blues, which is a 12 bar chord progression using 3 different chords. And the chords are usually referred to as the 1, 4 and 5 chords, and that's simply because they're built on the 1st, the 4th and the 5th notes of whatever key you happen to be in. So today we're in the key of A, and we're going to call the A chord our 1 chord. We need our 4 chord, which you count up from A, B, C, D. D is going to be our 4 chord, and A, B, C, D, E is going to be our 5 chords. So those are our 3 blues chords, and we're going to play them through in a particular fixed sequence. There are a lot of variations on this sequence, but at its most basic, you play 4 bars on the 1 chord, which is A, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and you change to the 4 chord for 2 bars, back to the 1 chord for 2 bars, you go to the 5 chord, which is E, 4 chord, which is D, back to the 1 chord, which is A, for another couple of bars. That's a very basic 12 bar blues progression. In practice you'll probably spice up these chords a little bit. You probably wouldn't use major chords, you'd use 7th chords or 9th chords or 13th chords or something like that, just to make it a bit more interesting. Now the particular pattern we're going to look at today, you might have noticed I'm not really playing big full chords at all. I'm just playing kind of a 2-note riff approach to the blues, which is another option. The underlying harmony and sort of implied chords are the same, but we're actually just using a couple of notes at a time. So let's get into this particular pattern. Now, as I say, we're in the key of A, and we're going to be in the 5th position, meaning our first finger is going to be up at the 5th fret, and I want you to play the low E string at the 5th fret with your index finger, and together with that note you're going to play the 7th fret on the A string with your 3rd finger. So we've got this kind of chord, I guess it's a kind of A power chord. We're going to play that twice, and I'm going to be using all downstrokes for this to start with. Then we're going to stretch out with our little finger to play the 9th fret on the A string, and we're going to play that along with the same note on the low E string. So we've got this kind of sound. We're going to play that 2 times as well. Now it's quite a big stretch. It might take a little bit of practice for you to get used to that, but most people can manage it, I think, with a little bit of practice. It may well be that you have to take away your 3rd finger when you reach for the stretch, but if you can, it's good to keep your 3rd finger in place at the 7th fret on the A while you stretch up with your little finger. If that is a bit tough for you to start with, you could always move the whole thing a bit higher up the neck where the frets are closer together, and it becomes a little bit easier, and then gradually move it down until you're able to play it in the 5th position. So back to our pattern, we're going to play 1st and 3rd fingers twice, then we're going to stretch up with our little finger and play that chord shape twice, and we're just going to be rocking back and forth between those 2 shapes, playing 2 down strokes on each one, and that will sound something like this. All down strokes, and because it's a blues we can give it a bit of a swing, a bit of a shuffle feel, so you're counting this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 basic pattern. We're going to play 4 bars of that. A bar is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll play that 4 times. Then we're going to move to our D chord shape. This is really straightforward. We're just going to do exactly the same thing, but we're moving it across to the next set of strings. So instead of playing on the 5th and 6th strings, we're playing on the 4th and 5th strings. So everything is moved towards the floor. So now we've got like our D power chord. My first finger is at the 5th fret on the A string. My third finger is at the 7th fret on the D string. And then we're going to stretch up to the 9th fret on the D string for the other shape. And we're going to play 2 bars of that. Then we're back to the 1 chord, the A chord, for another 2 bars. And for our 5 chord, which is an E, it's going to be 2 frets above our D shape. So first finger is at the 7th fret on the A string, third finger is at the 9th fret on the D string, and we're stretching up with our little finger to the 11th fret on the D string. 1 bar of that. Back to our 4 chord for 1 bar. And we're back home to the 1 chord. And when I played the piece at the start of the lesson, I just played a little simple turnaround lick, which is just an idea which comes at the end of a 12-bar sequence in a blues, and as the name suggests, it just turns the whole thing around and takes you back to the top to play it through another time. And all I did, I played our A power chord once, and then single notes. I played the 5th fret on the 6th string, and then I walked up from the 5th fret to the 6th fret to the 7th fret on the A string with my 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers. So that's coming at the end of the 12-bar sequence. I'm coming from the 5 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, here's the turnaround, 3, 4, and then we're back to the top again to take it round another time. I'm just going to play the whole thing through slowly so you can see how it all fits together. So starting with 4 bars on the 1 chord. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. And change up to the 4 chord. 2 bars on that. Back to the 1 chord, 5 chord, which is E, 4 chord D, back home to A, and I'll turn around lick, 3, 4, and then we can either go round again or we can just end it on an A chord. And that's it at its most simple. That's our 12-bar blues with this simple riff pattern. I want to talk now a little bit about ways that you can get this sounding really good, and for me it's in the details of the feel that are going to help you to get this sounding really authentic. There are a few things you can try. The first thing you could do is apply a bit of palm muting, and if you don't already know what that is, it's where we use our picking hand, not actually the palm. It's a bit confusingly named. It's not really the palm we're using. We're using the side of our picking hand and touching the lowest 2 or 3 strings where the string meets the bridge, just to muffle the strings and to get a nice kind of chunky percussive sound. So if I were to apply that to our riff, it would sound like this. Without the muting, with the muting, and straight away I think it sounds a bit cooler, a bit more authentic. So that's the first thing you can try. And there's lots of different variations in effect you can get with this palm muting depending on where you press. If you press down a bit nearer towards the neck of the guitar, you get more of a click, more of a chunky sound, or you can just do very light palm muting when your hand is barely touching the strings near the bridge of the guitar. So there's quite a range of different effects that you can experiment with palm muting. The second thing that I think helps this particular pattern to sound really good is to use some left hand muting, and this is something that I kind of found myself doing instinctively, and then when I analysed what I was doing, I realised that I was actually releasing pressure at certain points in this riff, and it really does help it come to life. So let me try and explain what it is that I do. I'm just releasing pressure slightly with my left hand after every down beat. That is, after the 1, 2, 3 and 4, I'm just momentarily releasing pressure with my fingers, and it just adds a little bit of a sort of staccato element to this riff, which again helps it come to life. Let me try and demonstrate that very slowly. So after the 1, I'm just going to release pressure, the notes are going to stop, and 2, release pressure, and 3, release pressure, and 4. So after every beat, I'm just releasing pressure. So it's 1 and 2, mute, and 3, mute, and 4, mute, and 1, mute, and 2, mute, and 3, mute, and 4, mute. Sounds a bit weird when I do it like that slowly, but as soon as I start to speed things up, you'll hear how good it makes it sound. If I wasn't doing the muting, it would just sound like this. That sounds a little bit flat like that, but as soon as you add in the muting, sounds cool. There's one more thing you can try doing, and that is adding in some accents, and by that I mean you're going to emphasize certain beats in the bar, namely the beats 2 and 4, which is usually where, if you're playing with a drummer, they're going to be hitting their snare drum on beats 2 and 4, and it sounds really good if you just emphasize those beats when you're picking those notes. So it would be like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So emphasizing the 2 and 4, to a lesser extent the 1 and the 3 are emphasized a bit as well, so it's kind of all of the downbeats with a slight emphasis on 2 and 4. So it's quite a few things to think about. We've got our palm muting with our picking hand, we've got our left hand muting, just releasing pressure after each beat, and also accenting the downbeats as well, particularly the 2 and the 4. And if you put all of that together, it should start sounding something like this. I'll just take it round the rest of the 12 bars. I just want to spend the rest of this lesson talking about ways that you can get the most you possibly can out of this basic idea. There are a few other things you can try. Firstly, you could try adding in a further stretch with your little finger, just to get an extra variation on this riff. And this is a very common thing, you'll hear this a lot, where instead of just rocking back and forth between those two shapes, we've got a further stretch up to the 10th fret on the A string, and this is a really big stretch, so don't injure yourselves whilst attempting this. Make sure you're warmed up before you try it. So the pattern is now this. We're going from the 7th fret, stretching up to the 9th fret, and then another stretch to the 10th fret, and then back to the 9th fret. And it's a nice variation. Same thing with the 4 and the 5 chords. With the 5 chord, you're stretching up to the D note, the 12th fret on the 4th string. So that's something you can add into this. You might not want to do it all the time, maybe just use it as a variation, occasionally throw in that extra stretch up with your little finger. Another thing you could try, and I did this at the top of the lesson when I played through the pattern, you can try changing the feel a little bit. We started off playing it with a kind of muted, all downstrokes type of feel. I think it works equally well if you play it a bit more aggressively with a down-up kind of motion, like this. It's a different feel, but sounds very cool. So that's something you can try. If you're going to attempt that, your left hand muting needs to be really good, because I'm being quite aggressive with my right hand. I'm hitting all of the strings quite hard, and I only want 2 strings to sound at any one time. So if I'm playing a pattern, I'm just using my first finger, resting that lightly across the other strings that I don't want to ring. Otherwise it's going to start sounding really messy. So muting with your first finger on the A chord. When you change up to the 4 and the 5 chords, you're going to want to just use the tip of your index finger to mute the low E string, and again use your first finger to mute the higher strings. So again, you can hit all of the strings quite aggressively, and you only get the notes that you want. Incidentally, you've always got the option when going to the 4 and the 5 chords to stay on the same set of strings. So instead of playing the 4 chord on the 5th and 4th strings in the 5th position, you can play the same shape up at the 10th fret. And for the 5 chord, you could play it up at the 12th fret. And that's something a lot of blues players do. I actually quite like the sound of that. You get a nice consistent sound that way by staying on the same string set throughout. One more thing you could try, and that is to attempt to play this in different keys. This is an important skill. Lots of guitarists are quite lazy when it comes to this. We like sort of the security of always playing in E or in A, but it's worth being able to play in all keys, in all 12 keys. Fortunately, with sort of pattern based things like this, it's quite easy. It's just a question of shifting the whole pattern higher or lower up the neck, starting on the root note of whatever key you want to be playing in. So you just, if you want to play in the key of C, you'll move the whole thing up. So you're starting, your 1 chord is now the C, which is at the 8th fret. Your 4 chord is now F. Your 5 chord is now G. And it's quite a visual thing when you're playing this. The relationship between the chords remains the same. So the 1 chord, if you're starting on 6th string root, is going to be here. The 4 chord's always going to be directly above that at the same fret. So your first finger is moving over to the next string. The 5 chord is always going to be 2 frets higher than the 4 chord. So you've got that nice visual relationship between the root notes, which is going to help you when it comes to playing in different keys. If you want a bit more of a challenge, you could try playing a blues where you start and have the 1 chord on a 5th string root shape. For instance, if you're playing a blues in the key of D, you might start on the 5th fret on the 5th and 4th strings with a D chord. Here the relationship between the root notes in the chords is going to have changed. Visually it's going to be a bit different. Our 4 chord is going to be 2 frets lower, but on the 5th and 6th strings. It's going to be G if you're playing a blues in D, and the 5 chord is going to be at the 5th fret on the 5th and 6th strings. It's going to be an A. So that's worth trying as well. A blues starting with a 5th string root chords, and so seeing if you can figure out that. So it's a lot of work there. If you want to get all of that together, you could try all 12 keys 6th string root, all 12 keys 5th string root, if you want to do things really thoroughly. So I think that's about it for this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have fun playing this blues rhythm pattern, and I'll see you again for another lesson very soon. Bye.